Yes, now the United Nations is warning that the crisis in Sudan could actually turn into a full-blown catastrophe. Would that actually mean for the entire region?
Well, you would have a spillover into countries like Chad, Central African Republic. You already have conflict in many of Sudan's 7 neighbors. So Egypt can be destabilized. You can have places like Libya, even Ethiopia being impacted negatively by this conflict. But you're also going to have a humanitarian crisis, which is a much, much bigger and more immediate concern for everybody as people begin to move across borders. And you're going to have a major security problem that can attract more mercenaries into the region. We already see that the Russians in the Darfur region, you could easily end up having a bigger conflagration, which engulfs many of the countries in the region who are already struggling.
And actually, Professor Nuama, for quite some time, especially the area of Darfur in Sudan had been quiet, and now we're hearing of fighting over there. And then we're seeing all these thousands of people leaving the country in all directions, to Egypt, to Chad, to South Sudan. What could happen internally also? And why do we have this great numbers of people moving out?
Well, Sudan has failed. We should admit that it has failed as a state, and as the state fails, people have to find alternative ways of surviving. You already have these conflict fault lines. So the Darfur region, we know what happened there with the Janjaweed and the genocide that occurred there. You already have clashes between Arabs and Africans in that region. As people move into that area, as Emeti's forces begin to assert control over the resources in that area, you're going to see greater pressure on the communities there to organize security on their own, since the state can no longer defend them. People are going to have to take matters to their own hands. And this is where you risk having even an ethnic aspect of this conflict come to the front.
Now, give us your assessment of how the African Union and other regional bodies have actually handled the crisis up to this point.
Well, the African Union has done its best, given the tools that it has. It's more like a severely handicapped driver being asked to control a runaway freight train, which is being tagged in various directions by regional crosswinds and an internal, political hurricane. The organization doesn't have the tools to do this. What it can do is to keep talking to the parties, keep leveraging its relationship with other powers, other organizations like the United Nations. The United Nations has been at the forefront of some of this stuff, and the United States, to try and get the parties to keep talking, extend the ceasefire, but think about how to monitor the ceasefire, because without monitoring the ceasefire, you're not guaranteed that anybody's going to do what they said they're going to do. And then you need to start thinking about what happens after this conflict is over. So we need to bring the civilians in. And the good thing is that because none of the parties have won yet, they are more likely to listen to offers that they think can help them. So you got to start thinking about how to start using incentives, both coercive and non-coercive incentives, to try and nudge them towards a place where we can have some solution, not for now, but for the future as well.
And very quickly, talking about incentives, we've seen people protesting outside the White House. What role does the United States and other Western powers have in finding a resolution to Sudan's crisis?
The United States has a lot of influence over the parties, maybe not in Sudan itself, but the parties that are supporting the two sides. So the United States has some relationship with the Egyptians and also the Saudis and the Emiratis. United States can help bring all those parties to the front. But in terms of even coercive incentives, the United States can start initiating efforts of the United Nations to try and indict some of these leaders. It should be on the table. When you meet with them, it shouldn't just be about asking them to make changes to their behavior on a morality basis. They're not going to do that. You have to threaten them. You have to show them the cost of not cooperating. So I would like to see some type of effort at the United Nations to indict these leaders, to talk about sanctioning them personally, so that they know that when they go ahead and they misbehave,
Yeah.
there is going to be some consequence. The United States has the leverage to do that. Now, I would like to see the Americans come out openly and say, here's what we're going to do if you don't cooperate.